Look, I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I am a LinkedIn coach who helps other business owners, coaches, and consultants get clients from LinkedIn so that they can make $10, $20, $40, $50,000 in a month. And that's why I have this YouTube channel. I create all of this content to help you get clients so that you trust me, you learn information, and then when you're ready, you can make a decision to work with me, whether that be purchasing my coaching program or whatever. So when I was planning to make this video, I asked myself, what is the best thing I could honestly provide you so that you could trust me even more? Then I realized, why not just give you a full-on private coaching call that I had with my clients? Because if you can see what it's like in my program where I'm actually coaching my clients, delivering value, teaching them strategy, obviously you're going to feel like, hey, this is something I'm going to want to do too. So that's exactly what I've done in this video. In fact, this is a private coaching call with my paid clients where I've literally taught them the exact strategy of what they need to do to get buyers from LinkedIn, how to handle objections when they're speaking with potential buyers, and how to do upsells and downsells with their offer depending on the prospect they're speaking to. Trust me, this is like a full value call and I'm giving it all to you for free. So take advantage of this call, watch it, learn, and implement everything you get from this call. Trust me, it's going to help you make way more money, get more clients, and just have a better business. So go and do that and enjoy the video. On one thing we haven't talked about a lot too much is more so like upselling and downselling the offers, right? With a lot of you, I've mainly worked on just your core offer, right? Where it's like, okay, sell this core offer, get someone to buy it, get them through the door, all of that kind of stuff. But one thing we haven't done too much is I just want to go into a little bit of the downsell offer, right? Because naturally, the way I look at this is pretty simple. As you start to sell your service, 80% of people are going to buy your main offer, right? That's why we focus on the main offer and we kind of disregard everything else. 10% are going to want your downsell offer because either they can't afford it, they need less support, they need something of that nature, or 10% are going to want VIP access to you, right? Are going to want some level of like higher level access to you. So it's definitely worth it to make sure that you have these other two offers. Now, before I even go into all of this, I do want to say, do not make these your focus, right? Never make your upsell or your downsell your focus, because at the end of the day, they're only 20% of what you're going to sell, 10 and 10 really. The truth is, you're never really going to predict when you're going to sell when you're going to be able to get an upsell or a downsell, right? It's naturally just going to just happen on the calls, right? You're going to talk to someone and be like, hey, they're going to say to you, Chris, can I get more access? Like, I think I need more than this. And then you give it to them. And then from the opposite side, some people might say, I can't afford this. What else can you give me? Now, one thing that when it comes to the downsell, and I preach this a lot, right? You don't want to create a new offer, right? Especially with the downsell. You don't want to create a new offer. You just want to pull things out of your current offer, right? So for example, when someone, I got on a call, last week. Was it last week? Yeah, I think it was on Tuesday last week. I got on a call with this lady and she was pretty adamant. She's like, look, I know what I need. All I need is just like this information. Do you have this in your course? And she literally asked me, she's like, can you just give me this via course? And I said, okay, fair enough. If that's what you need, like all good. And then what I did was, from my own, this is like the way I've structured it. So the whole program that I have, the coaching, the one-on-ones, the group, everything, I've essentially put a price on each individual item that adds up to the cumulative amount, right? So since this person just wanted the course, I was able to just pull that out and be like, here you go. You can have the course for $1,500. And she said, okay, no problem. Right. And it was an easy downsell to go through. So this is something I want you all to do, is like, look at your core program and essentially put a price on each activity that you offer, whether it's your course, whether it's the one-on-one, whether it's the group, whatever kind of documents you give, whatever kind of assets you have within your group, or within your core program, essentially put a price on it, and then you can easily downsell it, right? That's the first thing. Now, on the opposite side comes your upsell. Your upsell, again, I'd say this happens more rare. It might happen more often than not, but again, I think it'll happen maybe once every 2 months or something like that. But someone's going to come to you and be like, hey, I don't work well in group settings. I need a one-on-one. What can you give me? And this is totally to your discretion how much you want to give, right? If you want to upsell them, go ahead. But what I do, if you're going to upsell someone, is first of all, the main thing is to figure out what this person actually needs, right? Because I've made the mistake many times of just kind of throwing an upsell out there because the person actually just said, hey, like, how can I get more access to you? And I just gave them, created some offer and gave it to them. And they were like, no, this is not what I want. And then you lose the sale and it's over. So it's very important that when you are upselling and essentially customizing your program for somebody, to just give them what they want, and then you put a price on it. So for example, Sarah, if you're talking to someone and they say like, I don't want a group, I just want one-on-one access to you, every, like, what would it take to have like just 10 sessions with you? I wouldn't give them anything else but what they're asking for. All right. If they say 10, just put a number. But the main thing is make sure the number is increased. So you want to incentivize these people to essentially buy your core offer, because the reality is, even though you might make more money from an upsell, it's going to hurt you in the long run, because you're selling time for money at that point, right? And then it starts to become a lot less scalable, right? As you start to go. And again, it doesn't matter at the beginning, because whatever, you're just getting clients, you're trying to get people coming through the door. It's not that big of a deal. But I can tell you, it starts to really, because think about all these marketing activities we have to do, your core program. That's why I'm okay with selling like 1 or 2 upsells per month, right? Max, right? But if it starts to get 3, 4, 5, I won't do it. Right? I genuinely won't do it, because it's actually just going to hurt the business in the long run. So don't look at the money as like face value, like, oh, I just need to bring these people in, it's more cash collected. Look at it as like, okay, do I have the capacity to take these people on, assuming like I continue operating at the rate I'm operating at. So I've had a client sign up for my downsell offer, and they'd have, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that happens a lot. I'm actually glad you mentioned that. One thing I always do as well is, if someone buys my downsell offer, I always say, if you buy, like, same thing, this lady bought my downsell offer of the course. She just bought the course. And I said, look, if you decide that, hey, this course, you want to upgrade this and come into the full program, I'll just subtract the difference of what you paid for the course, because you don't need to pay twice. And then you can come into the main program. And then they're always like, great. Sometimes you can put like time limits on them. Be like, if you decide within the next week or 2, I don't really care. I'm like, I'm not trying to like, gouge everything out of everybody. But totally to your discretion. Okay. So not too much to go on to that. I just wanted to really bring up the that whole upsell downsell thing. Just be ready for it, and have an offer sheet ready, or have something ready, right? Essentially, because trust me, it's going to happen more often than not. Not necessarily, I shouldn't say more often than not, but it's going to happen where people are just going to want some kind of, specific support. And you don't want to leave money on the table, right? If someone's ready to go, just sell them. You know what I mean? Like, they want to work with you, just maybe the form of what you've offered originally is not what they want, right? And that's fine, but they still want to work with you. So give them something, right? Now, just be careful.
Real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? What's your opinion on advertising the downsell offer, right? So obviously you had that conversation with the person. They said, this is too much for me. And through the conversation, you gave them the downsell. Sarah's comment almost made it sound like she potentially had advertised that as like, here's one way to get started. Here's the core offer. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I actually don't advertise my downsells at all. I've tested it before. The problem is like, when you advertise a downsell, that's all people gravitate towards, right? They don't really look at, they'll almost discredit your main offer, right? They'll be like, oh, this is the entry point. They'll look at this as the entry point, and then they won't, like, it's very rare that someone looks at like 3 different offers and says, give me the highest one, right? So I would personally, to answer your question more succinctly, I wouldn't advertise the downsell. Advertise you, right? You're the product. It's like everything. Even think about it like this. I don't even advertise my coaching program, this core program, that much on LinkedIn, right? I'm talking about myself. I'm teaching. I'm trying to get people on calls, but it's really when I'm on the call that I make the offer, right? It's really on the call where they actually learn about. People obviously know I have a coaching program, right? Before they meet me, or before they get on a call with me, but they don't know the specifics of it, and intentionally so, right? Because the last thing I want people doing is kind of making a judgment call on whether they want to work with me or not before they've spoken with me, right? Because then it just becomes 9 out of 10 times, then it just becomes a price thing, right? Where they only value you on price. And then obviously there's going to be just someone cheaper than you, right? There's always going to be someone cheaper than you. And if you go on price, if you try and fight for price, it's just a race to zero, right? You know what I mean? Like, next guy's selling it that much. So yeah, to answer your question succinctly, no, I wouldn't advertise your downsell. I wouldn't even advertise your main offer to be that, that much. I would make sure that they know you have an offer, but they shouldn't know like every little, specific of it, unless either you get them on a call or you've kind of spoken to them one-on-one, right? Therefore, it's more of an intimate connection. They feel like, hey, this is something more specific for me, rather than, hey, this is just kind of like, you don't want it to be like, a Walmart item that they're like, all right, yeah, let's get this, right? Because then all of a sudden the value, because everything goes to price, and that's the last thing you want. It's like, for example, if someone DMs you right now, Chris, and says, Chris, how much do you cost, right? This might happen. Maybe it has happened before, right? People ask me this all the time, like, how much is your program? I won't tell them. I'll be like, my answer is always, look, I have a variety of different programs. It completely depends on your needs. And then if they really push, I give them a range. I'm like, look, it really ranges. It can range anywhere from like 1,500 to 10 grand, depending on what we deem is the right fit for you. And then that kind of eases them, and then I make an offer for a call. But I try not to, just put my program on a shelf and say, here's this $5,800 program you can enroll into, come on over, right? People do, it's too high ticket of an item for someone to just look at and be like, yeah, I'll go in and I'll just take that.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Kyle, you just said this happened to you. I'm curious to know what happened. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, man.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that literally just happened. So this guy that I just met with on a sales call, he's a bit more advanced and a bit more experienced. And so a lot of the stuff that I have in my program, he's already like there, So
Yeah.
he wanted some different, like different attention. So I just switched the conversation. I said, well, it sounds like you need more life coaching than career coaching. And so I just switched it, and I brought up my offer sheet. I showed him everything, and I just said, here's where we would tweak everything for you. And that went perfect. It went really well.
Did he buy it? Wow.
Well, so he has a rule where he will not do that on the call. He's like, no matter what, I'm not gonna. He told me that up front. He's like, you're not gonna make a sale on this call.
Fair enough.
But he said, I don't need 24 hours to think about it. I'll get back to you like real soon. He just wanted to see. He wanted to look at the offer sheet on his own. So I'm actually emailing him that right now while we're on this call.
Cool. No, good stuff.
And I'm putting in notes that says like, here's where we can tweak, this to suit you.
Yeah. No, that's really good. One thing, whenever you're customizing, yeah, exactly what you were saying, like, here's where we could tweak. I would always just like end it with, at the end of the day, this, us working together is not designed to be some structure for you to follow, but rather me to support you to get you to your goals. And we're going to do it within the framework of this program.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm still
say that.
I'm going to.
There you go. That's what I'm saying. All right.
Nice.
Awesome. No, I always say that to people. Like when I get on sales calls, because some people ask me, I was on a call yesterday with this lady, and she was just talking to me, and she's like, she just straight up asked me, she's like, what if, by call 2, I have a sales call the next day and I'm not prepared? I was like, look, that's a great question, right? The answer is, I'm not going to look at you. Her name was Stephanie. And I'm like, look, Steph, I'm not going to come to you and say, no, today we're updating your LinkedIn profile. Forget your sales call tomorrow, right? No, what I'm going to do is if you have a sales call coming up and you need to prepare for that, we're going to take that. That's going to take priority. Ultimately, the purpose of this program is to benefit you. And whatever is the most pressing thing, we're going to take care of that. So obviously the structure is there for us to help guide you throughout the program. But again, if there's alterations or something that needs to be changed, we're going to be all good. And she was like, I could see the relief in her face. She was like, oh, it's good. Because I think a lot of people fear overly structured programs. Like, obviously they want some structure, right? Where they don't just want to walk into like a kumbaya session, but they also want to have that flexibility. So yeah, great stuff. No, I think that's the way to go. Okay. Awesome. So covered that. And then on that note, one thing I feel like we have not covered, and I wanted to go into this a little bit. I know Juanita covered this, but I want to go over this a little bit more. It's a little bit of objection handling. And I listed out pretty much the 6 biggest objections I've gotten, and I'm sure a lot of you have as well. And I just want to go over just tackling each one of them one by one. And this goes for sales calls, messaging, pretty much in all circumstances. But majority of the time, this is going to be like a sales call issue. So the 6 objections are obviously, number 1, I don't have the funds. Number 2, I got to talk to my partner. Number 3, I'm not sure this will actually work for me. Number 4, right now is not the best time. Number 5, I'm already working with another coach. And number 6 is they're kind of just brushing you off, right? Like you're following up with them too much, all of that kind of stuff. So anyways, I want to tackle each one of these. How to handle them, how to speak with them, with everybody that you're speaking with. So naturally, the most common objection is always, I don't have the funds, or this is, too much for me. You're going to get this naturally, right? It's just the nature of selling a high ticket service. Hopefully it doesn't happen too much. But if it does happen, all good. This is how we're going to handle this. So if you get this, I don't have the funds, there's 2 things you need to be aware of. Number 1, before you even get this objection, you have to start looking at the prospects. Like, I'll be completely honest with all of you guys here. Me and Juanita came to a big conclusion last week with our business, and we noticed that people from the UK are like, they're very, like, I don't know if they're cash strapped or what's going on, but we've noticed that people from the UK, with us at least, love to get on calls, extract as much information, and then leave. Like, I think we've taken like 25 calls this year with people from the UK, and I think 23 of them were just like grab information and then just like nothing happens after. So this was something, before we even get into like I don't have the funds, you have to start looking at the prospect too and start seeing like, where is this person coming from? Like, is this person, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to say too much here, but like, for example, like, obviously if you're selling a high ticket service, it's unlikely that someone from a third world country is going to be able to buy it, right? The currency doesn't add up. It's just unfortunately, that's just the reality of how it is. But that's also the case sometimes in first world countries. So you also have to pay attention. So one thing I told Juanita last week, I was like, look, if we're going to book calls with anyone from the UK from now on, we need to be pretty direct with them. We can't just offer this as like, a one-on-one, game plan, free coaching session. We have to tell them, hey, look, we're going to get on the call, talk about my services, talk about how I can help you get to where you want to go. Like, just be extra direct. So this is just something, again, with the objection handling, be aware of who you're speaking to and pick up on patterns too, right? Like, this is a pattern we picked up on. Like, I never really thought about it, but for some reason, people in the UK just don't buy. So I told, obviously, Juanita, honestly, easiest market is just US, Canada, North America, all of that kind of stuff. I was actually talking to Jennifer. Some of you know Jennifer. She's in the program, Jennifer Payne, and she was telling me the same thing. She was saying like she's been targeting people in Amsterdam, France, Spain, Europe, and she's like, it's been great, but she's like, I noticed they're much slower buyers. And the main reason she hasn't worked in the U, she hasn't targeted so much the US is obviously because she's based in Europe. So I told her, just start targeting people in the East Coast of the US then. Right, like New York, because then the time difference is still less, right? Obviously, it's different, but it's not like if you're in someone's in California and you're in Amsterdam, you're working at like whatever 7-8 hours difference. That's a big deal. But if you're in like Amsterdam and they're in New York, like 5-6 hours, so you can make it work. So, anyways, just wanted to
That's what I do. You can let her know. Sorry, she wants to talk to me. That's what I do. So.
Sure. I'll definitely let her know. She reached out to me yesterday about this. Yeah. Yeah, Susie, I'm the same way. I personally think, like, obviously, I think it's just culture. Like, North American culture is more of like a consumer-based culture, right? We just buy things, whereas Europeans a little bit more reserved. But UK would be the exception, but apparently it's not. From my description, from my observation. So, anyways, that's the first thing going with this whole objection handling thing. Objection handling is obviously pay attention to your prospects and then just pick up on patterns. So I won't go too much more into that. Second thing, when it comes to don't have the funds, is you actually have to, like, I don't have the funds is probably one of the biggest smokescreen objections I've ever heard in my life. Right? Because truthfully speaking, if someone says I don't have the funds and that's the absolute truth, then that's just a logistical objection. It's not really it's actually probably one of the easiest objections to handle. Right? If someone does not have the funds or money is tight or something of that nature, then all you really need to do at that point is just say like, okay, great, isolate the problem. Okay, so aside from money, if you had an extra $10,000 lying around right now, would you jump into this? If they say yes, absolutely, there's literally nothing else holding me back other than the funds, be like, great, what if we broke this into a payment plan? Would this make it easier for you? Right? If this is the truth, like I said, like if someone's genuinely concerned about money, splitting into a payment plan, breaking it down, that should be essentially your first action, and that should solve it. Right? I've had this many times where people just say like, yeah, it's a little steep right now for me. I got to think about it. I just say like, look, is this is this the only thing holding you back? They're like, yeah, literally nothing else. And I say, cool. Would it make sense if we split this in two? And they just say, yeah, cool. And I say, done, move on. Now, on the opposite side, Susie, yes, that is true. That is something I was going to mention as well. There are companies that do financing as well. I think they're mainly based for US. It's been hard to find one for a Canadian. I think I just found one. A guy reached out to me last week. I don't know if he was legit or not, telling me about it. But that's another option you can do. But just be careful. You don't want to like screw over your clients, because there's a lot of financing companies out there that will, help you. Like, let's say someone's ready to buy from you, right? Or like same thing, money objection. They come to you and say, hey, I would love to enroll. I just can't afford it. You can literally connect them with this financing company. They can organize any kind of payment plan they want with this financing company. I think it's like up to like 12 to 24 months, but you get paid in full. Do you know what I mean? Like, you get your money in full, and then they deal with it. The only thing is you don't want to screw them over, because some of these financing companies are like credit cards, like 25% interest rate or something like that. So then it's like, it's just going to leave a bad taste in your actual buyer's mouth. Like, oh, you kind of set me up with like, some loan shark or something like that. And that I could have just gotten a line of credit or something, and that would have been a much better thing. So again, yeah, if you find someone, absolutely, like a legit company. For me, it's been a little tricky because I'm Canada, and for some reason, all these companies only serve Americans. So it's been a little annoying for me to handle, but all good. That is one option too. So like I said, if it's truly a financial objection, it's just a logistical issue. If you go into this objection handling and you help them, you break it into a payment plan, let's say 2 months, 3 months, and they're still budging. At this point, I start to look at it as like a smokescreen. And one thing I always say on sales calls is don't be afraid to call people out, obviously respectfully, but I would I've said this to people on calls. I've been like, hey, look, you did mention to me that this was obviously a financial objection. I did split this into a plan for you, almost 3 months, and this is something I really don't do. So, is this really just a money thing, or is there something else holding you back? And, feel free to let me know. You're not going to hurt my feelings if there's something else. Like, I would like to know if there's something else holding you back. Like, I always use that line, like, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you tell me the truth. And usually this is where things come out. Like, maybe this is happening, maybe this is happening. Then you start to handle it and go from there. So, but again, if it's a money objection, just go from there. If it gets to the point where someone is just kind of, the truth is this happens a decent amount, where people will bring up a money objection, but really they're not that interested, right? They're just kind of just blowing you off, right? If that's the case, don't chase these people. Just drop them. Be like, look, obviously I've tried my best here. If you do change your mind, maybe put a time limit on it and be like, look, if you do change your mind, I'm happy to hold this for you for, the next, 24, 48 hours, whatever you decide. But after that, I don't want to really chase you around for this. So I'd be happy to work with you, welcome you into my program, get us working together. But again, if this is not the right fit, that's totally fine too. So don't worry too much about chasing. You kind of have to be aware of it, and you'll know. And I always say this, you will know very instinctively after handling a few objections whether this person's legit or not. Right? So don't waste your time on just chasing people. If you have to spend your time convincing people, if you have to spend your time following up with people, like, again, nothing wrong with a follow-up, nothing wrong with helping people get them over the fence. But if you find that you're literally just dragging someone by their feet, then don't do it. It's not worth your time. You could easily get someone else on that. Okay, so next one, pretty simple, is I need to talk to my partner here. So here, I don't need, but I'll just share my screen anyway. These are just the notes here. So if someone says, I need to talk to my partner, easiest thing to do is, if they're around, and I will say this, I was a little shy at the beginning when I used to say this, but now I'm pretty comfortable with it. I say, like, look, is your partner around? I'd be happy to speak to them right now if they're ready to go. Right? Easiest thing to do, try and see if you can just get this person in front of you. Now, I'd say like 80% of the time, they'll probably say, no, they're not home, XYZ. Now, this is the one thing I don't really pressure on too much when someone says, I need to talk to my partner. What I typically do is just schedule the call for the next day. If someone's ready to go, again, confirm their interest, then just go and say, okay, so like, this is exactly how I would frame it. If someone says to me, hey, Sarah, I'm ready to go, this is awesome, I just need to talk to my partner before I can make this like financial commitment. I say, look, no worries at all. First I ask, is your partner around, XYZ? If they say no, I'd say, okay, no worries. So just to be clear, you're 100% in. You're all good to go with this. The only thing essentially holding you back is you just need to, have that chat with your partner, speak to them, and then if that's all good to go, we're rolling. And they'll say, yep, cool, great. I'd be like, awesome. So do you think you'd be able to speak to them tonight? And then we can set up a call for tomorrow, and then get you set up and get everything going from there. Again, if someone's interested, they'll agree to this. If someone's not interested, they'll throw a smokescreen and be like, I'll talk to them in 2 weeks. I don't think anybody is talking to their partner once every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? It doesn't make logical sense. People are talking to them. If they need a day, always try and schedule the call for the next day, right? So everything's kind of flowing and all that. Try not to press too much is what I'm saying when they need to talk to their partner, because it's actually a reasonable objection, right? I wouldn't even call it an objection. Right? It's just, yeah, keep it simple, right? Just I was just like, try and schedule the call for the next day, move forward, and then go from there. Yeah, Susie, I like to do that too, right? This is it's a good way to start the call. I know a lot of people who do that, who don't even take the call unless they've like got their partner or other decision maker on there. So it's totally preference, but that's awesome.
Yeah, sometimes I just ask, like, before we even get into the price, I just say, if you decide to do this, is this something you need to talk to your partner about? And sometimes people will be like, no, I can make the decision on my own. And then they can't use it as an objection later.
Actually, no, that's the I mean, you nailed it on the head. That's the perfect thing. Is like you want to handle all these objections before the call, before they say them, right? So, for example, one thing I'll skip this one and come back to the next one because just tagging on to your point here. Right now, I used to get this objection a lot. People would say to me, this is great, but can we circle back in a month? This, right now is not the right time. And I'm like, I would get frustrated. I'm like, then why would you schedule the call now? It didn't make sense to me. Like personally, I was like, you just, and so what I've done to handle this is exactly what you just said, Susie, is I asked them beforehand, right? So one of the first questions I ask when I get on sales calls is, why are we on the call right now? Like, why has now become that, like, why is now the time you're thinking to yourself, like, I need to solve this, like right now? And then they answer that. And then once they've given me that answer, that objection is gone. That objection is out of the window, right? And they tell me this information before I even make an offer, right? Before I've even talked about my program, right? It wouldn't make sense. And if they do bring it up, I'd be like, again, not trying to call them out, but I just say, well, you did say at the beginning of the call that, now is the time. And now you're saying this. But again, it doesn't happen. Most people never really go back on their word, right? So again, keep it like this. Just remember that the best thing I've learned in just this all sales objection stuff is that the seller is the one creating the objection, especially on these sales calls. Like any objection that you get is essentially just consider it your fault. And if you'll be liberated by this. Don't feel like this is stressful. You'll be liberated by this thought because naturally, if you take responsibility for every single objection, then you have control of every objection, right? And you can handle all of them. And the best way to handle them is at the beginning of the call. Ask all these questions. So, right, like Susie said, if they need to talk to their partner, ask them. Be like, hey, do you think you'd be worth it to have your partner on this call? Or, why is right now the next time? Are you currently working with another coach? Are you doing anything? Like, ask all of these so you can get them out of the way, right? Once you get them out of the way, it's very easy at the end. They're just like, cool, yep, awesome. Amex, Visa, MasterCard, let's go. Let's move forward. Everything starts to work really well for you. So going back here. So I want to go back to this point I missed over here, which is the third one, which is if someone says, I'm not sure this will work for me. This is a direct sign that your offer was not specific enough. So take this, you know what I mean? Like take this as a lesson, right? That if someone says, I'm not sure if this will work for me, either that they don't believe in your system, they don't believe in your method, or it was not specific enough for them. So the best way to handle this objection, and I'll be honest, this is one of the harder objections to handle because they're not sold on your program yet, right? They're not sold on what you're actually giving them. So if that's the case, then yes, you have to figure out why. So if someone says to me like, I'm not sure this will work for me, I would say, okay, look, fully understand, like what part of this specifically do you feel is not going to work for you? Do you feel like it's just the strategy? Are you more of an outbound person? What exactly about this whole strategy you feel is not going to work for you? I asked them this question, right? Like right off the bat. And then they will naturally tell me, what that objection is. Now, here's the reality is that if you get this objection, I'm not saying you won't close. I don't want to put that idea in your head, but it is a bit of a wall to climb up because now even after you've handled that objection, now you have to walk into the potential money objection or the I need to talk to my partner objection and then the follow-up objection. So there's a lot you need to handle. So this is why when you're explaining things, everyone at this point, I'm pretty sure almost all of you have gone through the whole sales script and everything, right? This is why at the beginning of the call, first part here is we understand their problems, whatever they're dealing with, where they're at, everything right now. Second is we figure out where they want to go. And then the third thing we go into is actually the game plan. This is why before I even mention my offer, before I even mention anything to these people, I show them, I go through my strategy. I say, look, this is how we get clients. This is how the system works. And then I just ask them, does this make sense to you? Do you see this working for you? Once I get the confirmation for that, then I can, then it's very easy for me to move forward and make an offer for the call, make an offer for my services. So this is exactly what I'm saying to you all, right? So make sure that, because I'll be honest, if someone says, I'm not sure this will work for me after you've presented the offer, it's very hard to come back from that, right? It's very hard. So just make sure, part one of the call, part one, small, the structure. Part one, small talk. Part two, understand where they are. Part three, figure out where they want to go. Part four, create a game plan to help them get to where they want to go, like lay it all out for them. And then at the end of part four, validate it. Does this make sense to you? Do you see how this can help you get to XYZ goal? Like, if I'm used to Sarah, I would say something along the lines of, after you've laid out the plan, I'll be like, does this make sense to you now? How we're going to get your business, fully investment ready to, right in front of, so you can be ready for, investors, XYZ. And then if they say yes, you're going to say, okay, great, awesome. Let's get you signed up. Let's get you rolling, everything like that. Let me tell you about my program. Let me show you how we can work together. But if someone says no, at that point, it's you can easily solve that and still close the sale. You see what I'm saying? Because you haven't even made the offer yet. So you could say something along the lines of, okay, so what about this system confuses you right now? Is like, let's clarify whatever doesn't make sense to you right now, and let's see what we can do here. And then again, lay it out for them, right? This is what works, whatever they say, go from there. So again, I don't want to go too much into not like, too much detail. I feel like I have a problem with doing this. But again, just kind of just to summarize, the majority of these objections, just try and handle them before the call and pay it. And one thing I will tell you is that pay attention to the objections you get, because they're all patterns, right? Once you get in the rhythm of even like, 2-3 sales calls a week, you're going to quickly realize like, oh, this is the objection I'm getting, right? You got to get very automatic with these things, right? At the beginning, sure, you can have some leeway for yourself. That's fair. But if someone says, I don't have the funds, you need to have like an automatic response to that, right? If someone says, I need to talk to my partner, these should never like send any like kind of like panic like signals to you. It should just be like, okay, he says this, I know how to say this. She says this, I know how to respond to this. Like it should just be like a very like automatic thing, right? So this is, I know it sounds weird, but it's almost good to practice this like alone in the mirror, right? It's almost like a speech. It's like, anything else, right? Just practice these things so you don't get these objections. So pay attention to the prospect, obviously, make sure there's patterns and prospects. That's really important too when you're on these calls. And then just pay attention to the objections. Like for me, what we got a lot at the start of the year was right now is not the best time, right? Like everyone's saying, let's circle back in a week, let's circle back in a month, all this kind of stuff. And then I just went and watched my sales calls, and I was like, there was no point in this call. I asked them, why now? Like, why are you taking action now? I was skipping that question. As soon as I inserted that question, literally that objection evaporated. Like, we're not getting that objection anymore on calls, right? We might get like, give me to the end of the week or give me a couple of days, but we're no longer getting, let's circle back in like 2 months. I'm not getting those anymore, right? Because I've handled them. So this is why I always say record your sales calls. Like record them, watch them. I know it's kind of awkward to just watch yourself talk to someone and you'll see the pauses and it feels weird, but it's just the best thing. It's like, sports players do this all the time. They like after every game, NBA, any sport will just watch gameplay footage and be like, this is what I did wrong. This is what I did right. And then you just naturally improve. But just basically what I'm saying is don't go into calls completely blind, right? Not knowing why the last sales call didn't work out, hoping the next one will. Okay, going into the fifth one here, which is an objection you might get where someone's working with another coach, right? This literally might be a reality for a lot of people, right? They say like, hey, I'm currently working with someone. I had a couple of calls last week with somebody who told me that. Now, just remember this. If someone's working with another coach, it doesn't mean the sale's done. It doesn't mean that they're not going to buy, right? They still got on a call with you for a reason, right? Always go back to the point in your mind where this person is speaking to me for a reason, right? There's no reason even if they're getting great results working with another coach, life's great. There's a reason they got on the call. Otherwise they wouldn't be on the call with you, right? So first thing, again, this goes back. Thank you, Susie, for bringing this up. Goes back. One of the first things I ask, what are you doing to solve this? Like, are you working with anyone? Have you worked with anyone before? What is that looking like? Now, if you get someone who says, yeah, I'm currently working with a coach, this is a perfect time. And again, try and handle this before you present the offer. And this is the perfect time where I ask them, I'd say, okay, great. Awesome to hear that you're working with a coach. Never badmouth anyone. What motivated you? If you're already working with a coach then right now, what motivated you to get on a call with me today then? Right? Like, is it working out? Are you looking for a second perspective? Like what exactly, has motivated you to work with me right now? Or sorry, to speak with me, because they're not ready to work with you just yet, right? And let them tell you, right? Because again, maybe they say I need a second opinion. I had a lady last week who said I signed up for another program, but it was completely like outbound, like automation generated. And she's like, I just realized it wasn't my style. She's like, I don't want to message, 500 people a week and burn bridges with like 498 of them. And I said, okay, fair enough. And she said, well, I'm looking for a second opinion to see like, what does an inbound model look like? So again, I didn't even need to know the name of who she was working with. I just said, okay, so that's what, so to be clear here, the problem up until now is like, you know, you were working with another coach, just the outbound model didn't jive with you, you know, reaching out, burning bridges with all these people. You're looking more for a client attraction model, getting people coming into you, putting your message out there, all of that. And she was like, yeah. I said, great. Okay, awesome. Then everything moves forward, right? Now, again, try with this, you got to start digging a little deeper, right? Because someone could say this, but then at the same time on the call say, yeah, as soon as I'm done with this coach, I'll be ready to go with you, right? And if the coach is finishing up in like a week, fine, whatever, that's cool. But if they're finishing up in like 6 months with another coach, well, then it's just too much time, right? You're going to lose. I mean, it's very rare that you're going to keep someone in like, you know, in the loop. Just kind of remember that with our offers, it's a little bit different, right? Because we're not, I mean, some of us are, but like, we want our sales cycle to be as short as possible. The nature of our consulting businesses, right? The nature of what we do should be a shorter sales cycle. You shouldn't be, you know, talking to like a director the next week, the VP of sales, like the next person, this, like, it should not be going this way. You should be speaking with the decision maker, and like this whole sales cycle shouldn't take long, right? Like 30 days max between like first point of contact to like actual like close. Now, obviously, if there's exceptions, that's fine. But all I'm saying is do not get stuck in this whole like corporate, like bureaucracy of like, oh, I need to wait 6 months for someone to get back to me, or like I'm circling back at the end of Q2. Forget about that. If that happens too much, let me know. We'll solve that real quick. So yes, anyways, what I'm saying is, if long story short, if they're working with another coach, figure out why they got on the call with you, and then ask them, be like, are you looking for a solution right now? What are you looking for right now? Again, because this will speed up a lot of time. And this leads to the last point here. If you're getting on a call with someone and you can immediately tell this person's not the right fit, you don't need to stay on that call for the full 45 minutes. Your time is precious. Like, do not waste your time on calls, right? You know, if you figure out like within 10 minutes in that like this person is just not the right fit, not someone you want to work with, or for whatever reason, whether they're not the right fit, whether it's someone you don't want to work with, end the call, right? Just finish the call. Obviously, respectfully do it, but just end the call and be like, hey, look, okay, so based on everything you've told me right now, I can tell for a fact that I don't think we'd be the right fit to work together. But if you have any final questions or anything you'd like me to answer while we still have each other on the phone, I'm happy to do so, right? Just let them know that and then end the call and move on, right? It is not worth your time to stay on a call because sales calls take energy, right? They're like, it's not just like sending a message. You're on a call for like 45 minutes to an hour. And you know what I mean? Like, if you know you're not going to close this person, do not take that call, or like finish that call as quickly as possible. Otherwise, things will just get stressful for you, right? You'll just waste your time. And you know, think about it. If you work 8 hours in a day, a sales call is like 12% of your day. A single sales call is like 12% of your day, right? Going up, assuming that your calls are around an hour. So again, just work on that. Like, take care of that, and then you'll be all good. Okay. So I did want to move on. I didn't want to just dwell on this, but has everything I said made sense so far, just with this objection handling and all? Okay, great. So next thing I wanted to show you here, I don't know if any of you used this before, but hold on here. Okay. Yeah, take a look at this. So I was playing on Lucid Chart this morning. So I really wanted to just break down the system as well, right? Of everything. Because I want to simplify this, and it's happened, and I feel like I constantly need to refresh myself and everyone on this, that, you know, as we do all these activities, don't forget that we're in a system here, right? You're operating your entire business as a very clear system, and you want to make sure that you want to figure out where the problems are in your business. I can tell you that at any given time, there's always going to be something that you're good at. There's going to be something that you're not good at. There's going to be something that's working. There's going to be something that's not working. Now, you want to be able to quickly identify what's not working in your business. This is like the most important thing, right? So, for example, if your content's not getting a lot of engagement, you have to take a step back and be like, do I have the right audience looking at me, right? If you're not closing on sales calls, you have to look at everything, right? So I want you to always look at your business under this, right? Under this. So the first and most important thing is your actual offer, right? Do people actually care about what you're selling? Like, this is like, and I know this sounds like a harsh question, but you have to fundamentally ask yourself this. right? And it's not that people don't always care about what you're selling. It's more about the specifics, right? So for example, I got on a call yesterday, a sales call yesterday with this guy. He was actually from Toronto. Interesting enough, random fact. Anyways, and he was telling me I was looking at his offer, and his offer was like on his LinkedIn profile was literally I help people achieve growth in their career. I was like, that's way too broad. I asked him like, how's business been for you so far? And he told me, he said, I'll be completely honest, I've taken 35 calls this year. I've closed one. I was like, you've closed one of 35. And I was like, okay. And I figured out why. And he's like, main reason, they don't trust me. I was like, how do you know they don't trust you? He's like, every time that's the main objection. They just don't feel like I'm the guy who can help them. I look at this guy's offer and I'm like, it's because you're just saying to people, I can help you have career growth. There's no niche, there's no focus, there's no anything, right? If you look at all the career coaches, especially the ones in this program, like look at Jason. You all know Jason, right? Jason Lum. The reason he did 20K in his second month was because his offer was so specific, right? His offer was I help students who didn't go to top tier Ivy League universities still land jobs in corporate finance, right? Think about that offer versus I'll help you achieve career growth, right? It's just two completely different worlds, right? His is like if I'm a university student who went to like I don't know, like Iowa State, and I want to go work at Goldman Sachs, naturally I have a huge competition ahead of me against like all those Ivy League schools, right? It's just naturally that's just how they hire. So if I see an offer of like, hey, if you went to a state school or if you went to just some regular university, but you want to get these high tier jobs, I can help you do it. Well, then obviously I'm going to be way more gravitated to this individual than I am to the person who just says I can help you, just achieve your dreams, right? So just look at your offer and just see if you're being specific enough, right? Just try and see if you're being specific enough. Now, don't go overly specific saying like, I only help students who went to like Iowa University or something like that. Then yeah, you're going to box yourself in too much, but be specific enough. I think a lot of people get hung up on this and they feel like, oh, like it's not the offer. And then they go into this because if the offer is not good, no matter how good your traffic, your content, or your conversion is, you're not going to close because people don't want what you're buying, right? Point in case this guy that I was speaking to, he took 35 calls and he closed one out of 35. Like that's like, I don't know, that's like a 2% close rate. I mean, a bit more, like 3.5% close rate. So again, just be cognizant of this. And if you want me to review your offer anytime, I'll be all good. Second thing is look at how many connections are actually being accepted into your network, right? Traffic. Right. Once your offer is dialed in, you know that people want this. Okay, genuinely look at your traffic and start saying look at two things to look at your traffic. Actually, another thing I forgot to put here is look at the new connections that are looking at your that are accepting your connection request every single week. And second, go look at who's viewing your LinkedIn profile. 70% of the people that look at your LinkedIn profile should fall into either your ideal buyers, your competitors, or someone within your ecosystem. If the majority of people who are looking at your profile are not within that sphere, then there is something wrong with your traffic. Just kind of take that as like a thing. So like today, if you have time, just go look, click on the button on LinkedIn, who's viewed my profile, and just take a look and be like, are these the people I need looking at my profile? Now, I'm not saying every single person needs to be your ideal buyer. Like, for example, I'll get some other business coaches looking at my profile. That's fine. I don't care. Like, go ahead, look at my profile all day. But at least I know that all of these people are within my sphere. But if I start getting, I don't know, like a barista at Starbucks and like all these baristas across like the US and Canada looking at my profile, I'll be like, what's going on here? Like, why are these people looking at my profile? These people are not my target market. Like, this is something that needs to be fixed. So again, pay attention to your traffic, right? Because this is one of the fastest ways to figure out who's like where your buyers are and if you have the right audience. Third thing to look at is obviously your content, right? This is why we evaluate these things. Easiest thing to look at is obviously how many posts have you published this week? What's your view count? I know I always say views don't matter. You're right. They don't matter as much as the other factors, but again, it's still something to look at, right? Look at how many posts you're publishing, what your view count is per post, and then pay attention to like how many qualified people are engaging with your content. The same way I said, pay attention to, the people who are viewing your LinkedIn profile, pay attention to the people who are looking at you, engaging with your content. Now, obviously, a lot of people engaging with your content will be people from this program because, we support each other in that way, but also pay attention beyond that. Are like your ideal buyers engaging with your content, or is it just a bunch of randoms, right? And again, it doesn't always have to be your ideal buyers. It can be your ideal buyers, your competitors, anyone in that sphere, but you need the right people looking at you. So while the views don't matter, what does matter is the quality of the people engaging with you, right? And I like to use Amy as an example. Is Amy here today? No, I don't think she is. Okay, Amy's a prime example. Amy has less than 1,000 followers on LinkedIn, right? She has, and if you look at her posts, they don't get a lot of engagement. They get like, anywhere between 5 to 10 likes per post. Yet she literally had to stop her marketing because she's so booked out. She literally said, I can't take on any more clients because this is like, I've hit capacity. Yet, and she's only getting like 5 to 10 likes per post. It's because her traffic is so incredibly dialed in. She doesn't need 2,000 views on a post. She could probably get 200 views, 5 likes on a post, and there's 2 buyers within that post that she can follow up with, and then boom, she's rolling, right? So again, don't worry so much about the view count and numbers and all that stuff. We're not trying to be influencers. That's simply the byproduct. Pay attention to the people viewing your profile. Pay attention to the people engaging with your content. Those are going to be the 2 biggest indications of if your audience is the right, if the right buyers are looking at you. So pay a lot of attention to that. Now, third thing is the conversion, right? So obviously, traffic, content we covered. Conversion here is, okay, let's look at now how many people are we pushing over the edge? Now, at the beginning, the traffic, the content, it's obviously about like how many people just know we exist, right? That's really what our goal is. When people view our profile, when people engage with our content, it doesn't mean they're in a buying mode. It just means they like you. They think they think you're all right. They respect your word. It's enough. That's all we wanted at that point. But obviously, you got to start looking at the next steps, right? Now, if you have a VSL, I know some of you don't, some of you do. If you have a VSL, pay attention to how many people are opting in per week. And you got to also know the ratios, right? I feel like this is something I have not touched on that I want to a little bit. Look at the number of views you get on your post and compare that to the amount of opt-ins. Like if you're getting on average like 3 to 500 views per post, let me put it this way: for every don't quote me on like this exact number, but just a rough number. For every 300, or let's say 500 to be safe, for every 500 views on your post, you should get about 1 to 2 VSL opt-ins, right? You should get 1 to 2 people coming to your profile, watching your free training video. It doesn't mean they're booking, right? And then for every 10 VSL opt-ins, you should get an automatic call booked, meaning that you should get someone without a conversation, without even talking to you, just booking a call all done, right? So you should, again, that's like a very arbitrary number. We could look at that, change it. I just want you to kind of have some form of a picture of where what it should be like. So for example, if you publish, let's just put this here and say you publish 5 posts per week on LinkedIn, right? And let's say your average view per post is, let's just say, whatever, 700, right? So 700 views, right? What I would expect from that, so that means that's a total of 3,500 views. So 3,500 views, so you should have anywhere between, 7 posts, 500 times 2. So you should have anywhere between, let's say, 5 to 10 VSL opt-ins, right, per week. Meaning people who watch your training video, that's it. And then all those 5 to 7 opt-ins, you should have about 2 calls booked, 1 to 2 calls, depending on the number. So let's say 1 to 2 calls booked. Now, this does not mean that it's over, right? This does not mean this is all the calls you have booked. If you have 5 to 10 VSL, let's say you have 10 VSL opt-ins and 1 person books a call. That's great. That means there's 9 people for you to follow up with. 9 people you can reach out to and say like, hey, Dorothy, I saw you watch my video on XYZ, right? What in particular were you looking for? I'd be happy to point you in the right direction, and then see if you can book a few more calls from that. So let's say from that you book another 1 to 2 follow-up calls. Calls from follow-ups, from follow-ups. And then now you also have your inbox messaging for all the people who've been liking and commenting on your posts, all the people who have been engaging with your profile, looking at your profile. Let's say you just reach out to everyone who looked at your profile, that's the right fit, and you say, hey, Tom, I saw you checked out my profile earlier. What in particular were you looking for? I'd be happy to point you in the right direction. Let's say someone engages with your content. Hey, Joe, thanks for I appreciate your engagement on my posts. Means a lot. Nothing more than that. If you just start sending these messages out to people, it's like physics, right? Stay in motion. Once you stay in motion, things start working, right? You can't stay stagnant. So let's say you just do this. And then let's say you book another 3 calls. Let's even be conservative and say another 1 to 2 calls from messaging, right? So that's a total of 1, 2, 3 3 to 6 calls per week. Qualified calls too, that you should be putting on the board per week, right? That's pretty good, right? And if you have like a 90% show up rate, let's just, you should all have like a 95% show up rate. But again, let's just work with that. Let's just say 100% show up rate because it's a smaller number. So let's say equals, let's say 4. Let's just keep it at 4, just in the middle of 3 and 6. 4 calls, showed up, and then let's say you close at 20. Close rate is 25%. Close rate 25%. That's 1 sale, right? And then you can put your total cash collected as whatever. Let's just say whatever you sell it at. Let's just say 3K or something like that. Boom. Now it's worked. Now you can look at the system and be like, all right, here we go, right? And this is how I want you to start looking at your business, is more of like this, more of this high level system, right? I want you to start looking at your business under this scope, because the sooner you do this, the easier it's going to be for you to start getting clients. The easier it'll be for you to start, like, everything will start working. And more importantly, you'll never, I can't say you'll never get stressed, because that's human nature, but you'll never have to really be confused as to why is it not working, right? And I'll be honest, naturally there's peaks and valleys in business. That's just how every business in this world works. You look at like Amazon stock graphs, there's months it's up, there's months it's down, doesn't matter. That's just how it is. But at least you can figure this out, right? So for example, for just speaking like for me, right? One thing, like I was saying, another thing that we've picked up on, me and Juanita, is when we run a webinar, obviously the webinars do really well for us, right? But more importantly, after the webinar, we're rolling for about 3 weeks, right? Even after the webinar, the inbox is flowing, the content engagement is up, everything's rolling really quickly for about, not really quickly, but everything's flowing really well for about 3 weeks after the webinar. Then typically on that 4th week, things start to slow down, and then we run another webinar, and then we kind of like shoot up the numbers again, and things start to operate. So again, these are things I want you to pay attention to in your operation, right?